Hello and welcome back to Building Momentum, the show where we peel back the curtain on the exciting and often chaotic world of building a successful SaaS business. I'm Yash, your host for this show, where every episode we bring you the stories and strategies of founders who've been in the trenches, conquering churn, scaling their teams, and building products that people and businesses love. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Bryan from SpiderNow. SpiderNow is an AI platform that helps you discover and improve your on-page SEO and performance issues. We're excited to hear their stories and the lessons they've learned along the way. We'll be dissecting the wins, the losses, and everything in between. So buckle up, grab your headphones, and get ready to dive in the world of SaaS. Hey Bryan, thank you for doing this. How are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great as well. And so let's start with understanding a little more around SpiderNow. What's the big problem that SpiderNow is solving at this point of time?
Well, SpiderNow was designed for a purpose to solve issues with technical SEO, on-page SEO issues, and page performance. We basically started out looking at designing it to be kind of like a similar to companies like Screaming Frogs, where they are desktop and we're more web-based web app platform. And so when we looked at what we were doing, and we said, well, let's take what we have and take what everybody else did really well and let's make it better and then add AI on top of it.
Oh, got it. Interesting. And if I want to sort of try and understand a little bit around the size and scale of SpiderNow, can you share with us a little bit around the status quo as to where have we reached up until now? So if I want to get an estimate or an understanding of the size and scale at SpiderNow, would you be able to share with us some amount of details on status quo? Where are we today?
Yeah, so right now we've been building the platform for a little over 2 years. And it started out with me and my partner, and we came from a previous company that I owned, and we decided we were going to start building this platform. And as we were building it, we started looking at developing an automated way for people to find issues with technical SEO and on-page issues and page performance, speed issues. And we have an AI that we've incorporated into it that looks for issues and assists people that can't solve the problem. So one of the big things that we saw as we were going along is that we were pretty much focused on people that are developers, people that are SEO experts or people that are web developers. But we saw a very big market in people that are not developers. So one of the things that we've been working on is focusing on an AI that would go across somebody's website, look for these issues, but not only identify the issues and show you the solution for it, but actually create the code. So we use a MetaLlama that we're using for building our AI, and what it does is just basically rewrites the code, and we still got a long way to go, but what it does, it rewrites the code, does fill in the middle coding. So it allows people that are not coders to be able to say, I don't know what the solution is, but if you go ahead and give it to me, I can download the file and upload it to my server. So that was kind of the point of SpiderNow.
Interesting. And where are we today? How many customers, users? Like, what's the scale?
Right now, we have a little bit over 6,000 users on our platform, and we have we've developed extensions through Chrome extensions and Microsoft Edge add-ons that we're getting many users from. Also, we are getting users from AppZuma. We've been on that platform twice, and we're going to be on there in February of next year also, once we have our AI completed.
Got it. And that's interesting, right? So let's I want to understand that piece a little more, which is sort of around the go-to market, right? Most SaaS founders, when we talk to them as to how are you going to acquire users and customers, one, they expect that they'll build a great product and somehow magically the users will appear. Second, one level more than that, or one level deeper than that, is almost everyone just ends up saying, SEO, PPC, stuff like that, right? But there are other distribution channels, as you've explored yourselves, which is launching onto extensions, or like building Chrome extensions or marketplaces, and then also launching on platforms like AppSumo, which is where customers might already exist. So how did you sort of go about it? When did you start thinking about building such extensions which can end up being distribution channels for Spider?
Well, one of the things that we saw is that we have a tool that we want to give partially free to users to use to be able to find issues. And then we also have a paid version that takes it a little bit more in depth with our AI and grammar. We have grammar checks and spelling checks, for example.
Yeah.
But what right now we have a Chrome and a Microsoft Edge extension. We're building a Safari one right now. And we're also, within about 2 weeks, we'll have a native apps for the Google Play and the Apple Store. So there's a lot of challenges when you're building these apps out to make everything very robust, but keeping up with the technology that we're doing at the same time.
Got it. So let's talk about pricing a little bit, right? So there are two sort of factions that I've seen in SaaS, where there are some founders who come with a very strong opinion that you should have a 7-day, 14-day, or a 21-day free trial, and then that's it. After that, you either pay or we shut the access, and then because their fundamental belief is that if you give away something for free, it will not be valuable. On the flip side, there are other sort of faction of founders who are like, hey, I'll give you free access up to a certain extent, and then you'll want to do more value discovery, and that is why you will upgrade. But the challenge with having a free forever plan that is capped on features or limits is that it's extremely difficult for you to project your cash flow, right? Project how much will you grow month on month, because you might acquire more users, but they might continue to use it for free. So what are your thoughts on that?
So it was really interesting. So we got the idea for a free forever subscriptions from Mouseflow when they originally were doing it. It was actually a really interesting concept. And we did do originally the 14-day trial, but we looked at it and we're like, well, if we want to keep progressing users into using our platform more and adding more add-ons, because we have add-ons in our system for you can add AI and more save scans and things like that. And there's some things we're doing in the future that we're like, well, if we cap them at 14 days and take their credit card right away, it's kind of brushes them aside and they might not want to continue. But adding the free forever account, we give them just enough that they want to be able to see. And then, but we, at the same time, we continue to be able to keep them, the momentum going by emailing them and saying, hey, we got some new updates. We got new, so the point was like, performance makes a big difference in your leads. It's not just how you optimize the page, how fast you make the page, how well it's designed, what you put up the call to action above the fold, how you work on that. Everything factors into getting your conversions up. And if you don't have that together, it doesn't matter how pretty your website is, you're just going nowhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's true. And so I wanted to sort of shift gears a little bit and try and understand this a little bit more, in the sense that you have 27 years of professional work experience. Most of that, I would say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, has been in hardcore ops, right? It is hardcore operations driven organizations. So I think you ran a company, you owned and ran and founded a company which was into logistics at airports. Like, why shift into an engineer like SaaS product? What attracted you to SaaS?
Well, that's an interesting question. So when I ran the company for 20 years, we did airport rides, very similar to Uber and Lyft. But we did 3,000 airports that we had vehicles in. And so we were basically a very strong organic type of company. We ranked organically. Well, at first we didn't. I mean, when we first started the company, we were paying, just in Google alone, we were paying $36,000 a month in ads when we first started out. And, as a new company in the early 2000s, that was a lot of money. And so as we built the momentum for our rankings, our organic rankings started literally, we hit number 1, 2, 3, the how it works. And we started seeing a shift from paid ads to organic. And so we brought that down to about 2,000 to 3,000 per month. And we started gaining our profitability. So as you're running, a business, you start to really look at what's important and how to grow. We never had investors. We had some small investors, but we had not very big investors at all. And as we ran that company for 20 years, my current partner right now in SpiderNow, was a software engineer, and he came to work for us, and he's amazing. I cannot say how amazing. He's the most honest and best developer I've ever met in my life. And so we started developing our own web apps through the company that we were at and that I owned. And we developed a web app that actually created a self-management tool that managed people's rides for not just large companies. Like you had the big companies like Greyhound and Super Shuttles. We had all those companies, right, in our system. But we wanted to manage smaller and medium-sized companies, but they just didn't have the technology to do this. It's very expensive. So we developed a platform that allowed them to have their own booking engines. They could modify widgets on the fly. They can change the colors, the look, what airports they service, what vehicles. We gave them free affiliate systems where they could resell affiliates, coupon system, APIs. We even gave them a rideshare app that API'd into our system where they just plug and played, and they had a ride app inside for their company that they could launch into the Google Play and App Store. So it was a really great system. But we developed these apps, and we started developing SaaS towards the end of the term of that company. And as we were approaching it, we're like, my partner and I always laughed. We're like, we feel like there are a lot of really good companies in this sector for SEO tools, especially when it comes down to performance. But we felt like there were major aspects of it that were being missed that we could capitalize on. And so it was always kind of a joke between him and I. And as that company was acquired, we sat there and said, maybe a joke should just turn into something real. So let's just try it. So we started building that company, him and I, completely for about a year and a half, just him and I building this technology. And we built some really great technology going into there. Like I think one of the best features we have in our SaaS tool is products that will come. We have over 100 pages of features that we're actually building right now that will become more and more usable for these people. So while they may not subscribe now, they might see some of the features that we have and go, oh, wait, I like that. So one of the features that we have coming up in the next 2 weeks is we have a project management tool that's completely customized. And like most of the people that we have are developers and SEO marketers. Yeah. So we came up with a customized project management system that will allow them to manage their customers, to be able to do quotations automatically. It's completely robust. We actually have our own chat feature inside there and a video feature. So they can basically do kind of like what we're doing. You can record the videos and chat and upload files and things like that, but it keeps it within their system forever. So say if you have, 50 employees, well, everybody's on different chats sometimes. So you're not really recording all that. Well, what happens is if you're talking to a client, then you can, every single document, every single file that's uploaded, every single video or chat is completely kept within that file for that customer. So it keeps everything a little bit easier. So for example, if somebody's working on a customer and they have to go on vacation or they go on sick leave, then you can have 10 people walk in and pick up exactly where they left off instantly. So instead of having to go through their emails or going through their videos or finding out what was being said, everything is kept in one single place. So that was something that we thought about for a while that would be helpful for people. And that should be launching in about 2 weeks.
Got it. And the people who are using the platform for free, do you, like their usage of the product, do you consider that as a customer acquisition cost? Or is that like cost of services?
Oh, no, they're not. Like you're talking about for cost acquisition?
Yeah.
No, we don't really count them because they're pretty much free right now. But when we come to the people that are free, our what we're looking at is that, we may have a lot of customers in there right now, but as we keep adding these features, we will be looking at trying to convert them. Like one of the features we have right now, we API'd into Google Analytics and Google Console. So now you can get all your data within one place. So the idea we're doing too is being a lot more robust for people to get all their information for performance, not just, marketing for SEO, because I've been a marketer for 27 years. So I've been around the industry for a long time. But one thing that people miss the most is the development side. If you do not have a really well written code or high performance website, you're not going anywhere in rankings, no matter how well you think you have the website.
Yeah. So, and that's really true. Like even at Momentum, when we are talking to our clients, and before Momentum, I used to run a SaaS company myself called ClientJoy, which was a CRM for freelancers and agencies. And we were serving about 13,000 odd customers. We got acquired earlier this year by a US based firm, which was also serving similar target market. And we ran that for about 4 years. And I can actually remember the time when the graph started pointing up, and there was no other marketing activity that we did. We just moved. In our case, we moved from a slow WordPress site. It was not WordPress's problem. It was our problem. But we moved away from a slow WordPress website, the exact same design, the exact same copy, onto an extremely fast Webflow site. Right? And there was no other change, right? So the blogs were the same, the keywords were the same, the website, sitemap, everything was the same. And we, just because of the performance improvement, we saw the graph pointing up. Our conversion rates improved from website visitor to signups. Our amount of time spent improved. Our bounce rates, people say that you should not look at bounce rates, and I'm not really sure whether to look at it or not, but whether you look at it or not, it reduced, right? So like on-page optimization is often overlooked, or it's not well done, or it's well done the first time you deploy the website, and then everything sort of goes downhill from there for the next 3 or 6 months. And this is actually really meaningful. But one of the other things that you also mentioned,
oh, I'm sorry,
sure.
I didn't interrupt you. So I was going to say that bounce rate does play a really big part into your rankings, without a doubt, because it really measures whether the content and what you have, anything that's above the fold, is really worthy to that customer, and Google does measure that. But I was going to make a comment you were saying about the page performance. We have a law firm that used our software, and they were ranking way past 100 on every single category they had. And within a couple months, they were ranked in the top 5 for every single category they had. Oh, wow. And it was funny. I got the lawyer called me up one day, and he's like, "Hey, Bryan, it's great. We went from 2 to 3 leads a day to 33 leads on average a day." I'm like, "Okay, so what's up?" And he goes, "Well, we're getting too many leads that have more to do with not just what we do, but other services that we don't." I'm like, "Did you just call me up and complain about getting leads?" And he started laughing. Like, "Okay, good point. That when people crawl, you're going to suck up a lot of resources when you're crawling websites. You're gathering that information." And when we started launching it, we started seeing that very quickly. I mean, once we got to 1,000 pages with 1,000 users, our load balancing was just horrendous. So my partner, the brilliant guy that he is, said, "Well, why don't we treat our web app like a desktop app?" And I was like, "Can you do that?" So knowing my partner, he says, "Yes, let's do it." So we spent probably about 4 or 5 months building it. And right now, SpiderNow does not use the resources off of our servers to crawl and to gather information. We use the resources off the person's device. So our web app actually acts like a desktop app, therefore allowing somebody to crawl 10,000, 30,000 pages without really flinching our servers. So that gives us the ability to have thousands of people crawling their sites and gathering information and run an AI without our servers being just bogged down completely. So that was one of the best features I think that he ever came up with.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's interesting, and that sort of also highlights how important it is to not just strike upon a great idea or an opportunity, but also to find the right partners or find the right people to sort of build whatever opportunity that you've identified as well, right? And so that sort of brings me to another question, which is you mentioned that you built out the first version of the platform for about a year to year and a half. How do you build conviction for so long that once I finish building this product, I will get customers or users at the end of it, right? So while the product is being built, and some products have a longish gestation period where you cannot launch an MVP in 3 weeks or 4 months, or like you cannot use a no-code platform to to test out the market. Some products do have a longish gestation period. In 1.5 years, like, how would you, like, were there other things that you tried to build conviction or figure out some early signs of like a PMF or like early signs of fitment that you tried working on?
Well, on the last company we had, we didn't make money really well at all for a long time. So it took us a while to get there and the momentum to get there. But one of the things that my partner and I are really good at, we're good at persistency, and we see a
Mm-hmm.
vision. So we know you have to build what you have first to really get there. And sometimes it just takes a lot of rugged work. Like, we worked this full time. We didn't do any other jobs. We focused on this primarily. And just like the other business, it was the same thing. We had to build that momentum. Like, we are first in industry to do the business that we were doing. So it
Yeah.
was very interesting to come up with a point-to-point system that actually worked. Same thing for SpiderNow. It was basically coming up with a system of what we were trying to do that was much different. And we have a few things that are launching soon, which people will see very quickly, that there are things now that we got the core base of our algorithm and everything that's really running well. The features that we have coming out, especially there's a couple of them, and then by the end of this year, that are so unique to the industry, it's never been developed before. And there's two of them in particular I'd love to discuss, but we're not finished with it yet, so don't want to go into it too details. But you'll see the difference on how to take something that's with experience with SEO and software engineering and mix them together so you come up with a really great product. And that's what we're trying to do at SpiderNow, is come up with technology that people haven't developed yet. Right now, the first year and a half was, well, we're kind of building what a lot of people built already. We already knew that. Going into it, we were going to be build it, but let's build that part better. So that's what we are aiming for, and which we believe we have. And then the next year, we've been building out some supporting tools that are going to be going with our AI and our main software. And then for the next year, it's really going to be AI driven and a lot of these new features that haven't been done yet. And, it's interesting. I have an advisor that I've been talking to who's really well known for SEO. And I was kind of discussing him with the ideas, and he's like, wow, if you guys really finish those products, people will flock to it. Because one of the features we have, and it's exciting to say, but like I said, I don't want to go too far, but one of the features we have literally takes most developers a couple days to a week just to fix. And our system will fix it within a couple seconds. And so that's something that's important to people, especially in performance. So there's some of the things that we're working on. But the AI feature, I think, is one of the most important features, is because we want people to be able to, when you do performance, people look at it and they're like, well, my page performance, I got my pages shifting, I got how fast the customer interacts. These are factors that most people don't know how to code, and some of it can be very complicated. I mean, it can be extremely complicated, especially if you're doing used and unused coding. It's very complicated. So with developing an AI that will say, don't worry about it. We'll do it for you. We'll give you the solution and you can do it for you, or we're going to do it for you, design it. And we're designing it for not just, people that are just, who have static code. We're designing it for WordPress, Joomla, Magento, Django, everything you can think of. We're developing it for those platforms so people can use those plugins and just push a button. So the idea of SpiderNow ultimately is that we don't have to do, people don't have to worry about it. We will do our system will automatically find all the issues you have every week or every month, whatever you set the scheduling to. It'll correct it for you, and then it'll have the file there for you either to download or upload, or we can FTP automatically and upload it to your dev server so you can test live. That's really the ultimate goal of SpiderNow. And then at the same time, every time Google or say Bing does a logarithm update or core update, we take those changes and we put them into our own system and our own logarithm and start updating it to the clients and say, hey, by the way, Google just came up with this new concept that you need to update on your website, and don't worry about it. Here's the solution, or here's the file, just upload it.
Got it. That's interesting. And so Bryan, this brings us towards the end of the episode. At the end of the episode, one of the things that we do is I ask you a question that our previous guest has asked for you, and then you also have an opportunity to ask a question to our next guest. And this typically, the question that you ask to the next guest is something that you're trying to solve for at SpiderNow as of now. And so you'll have a couple of minutes to think about it while I ask you, the question that I have from my previous guest. And so my previous guest was Kevin. Kevin runs a platform that offers agencies an ability to build client portals for their clients. So it's sort of unified one place for all the agencies to create portals for all the clients that they have. The product's called Aha Suite. And one of the questions that he's currently trying to solve for at Aha Suite is how do you maintain balance between the requirements that your customers have today versus the things that you as a founder want to build, and you know that they will address latent challenges that your customers have, and that it is going to be like 4x more valuable than what they are asking for, right? So essentially, how do you as a founder decide between building or offering faster horses versus building a car? How do you sort of maintain a balance, given that engineering teams at a SaaS, early stage SaaS company specifically, is going to be very tight. It's going to be very small and a tightly knit.
Okay, so what you're saying is trying to decide which features we're going to offer first before others.
And prioritization between things that your customers are asking versus things that you want to build at SpiderNow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's interesting when you develop this, you think, okay, I know exactly what my customer wants first, right? And we do. Some of it we got right, but some of it we got wrong, and we found that out when we went to AppSumo. And we would get a ton of questions from the customers, and they would go, "Hey, do you have anything that does your tool in other languages?" And that was something that we never really put a lot of thought into as being something that on top. But we found out like 80% of the people inside AppSumo wanted that feature. So that's another feature that's actually coming out here in the next 2 months. Is we've already built most of it. Is where you can write the whole tool in, say, German, for example, or Italian, but then it crawls it based on the language that's on the page itself. So customers want to be able to use the actual language they have rather than English, but then keep the spidering going properly for what it is. So you might turn the language into Italian, for example, but the crawl might be in Japanese. And so that was something that we're like, oh, that was actually a really great idea, something that we really never thought about. But then we had 80% of the people come in there and say, yes, we want that. Another feature was, well, we want to be able to save the scans and go back to it. And we're like, well, that just seems like a good feature, but not really top of our priority. And then as people kept going in, they're like, no, we want this, we want this, we want this. So we did that. We actually added that. And so even the reporting that we have, same thing. We thought it was at the bottom of the list, and it actually became the top. That was the third one that the AppSumo people wanted. So we went out there and finished that. And now we have reporting inside there where they can download CSV files and things like that to be able to download that information for their own use. So it's interesting when you go into it, you think you know one thing, but the customers always tell you something very different.
Correct. Interesting. And so Bryan, what is your question for my next guest? What is the challenge that you are currently trying to solve for at SpiderNow?
I think probably one of the best questions I can ask is a question that I've learned the hard way and the easy way. So this is a good one for anybody that's especially starting a SaaS company, is when to get an investor and when to bootstrap. I think and I recently I was part of a pitch that where one of the people that was doing AI also called me the next day, and he asked me the same question: when do you make that move? And so for my previous business, at the beginning we got a few small investors, but we bootstrapped it the entire way. Well, we got to COVID, and of course, as they shut down every airport in the world, we got destroyed. So we went from really growing fast to zero overnight. And I was like, man, if I had an investor, that would have been a totally different story. So going into this business, my partner and I said, let's make this business COVID proof, which that was the point of SpiderNow. Let's develop a business that would, if there was ever another COVID or something like that, we could survive it. But then when do we pull the pull going for an investor or continue to bootstrap? And I think at this point, when we started seeing that we started solving a lot of the people's questions and the problems that they had through AppSumo, and we're about to finish some of the major features we had, we're like, okay, I think we're getting close. And then we saw two of our competitors start grabbing a ton of money. Like when I say money, I'm like they're in the $100 million range, and we're like,
Oh,
okay, if
wow.
we don't start getting investors, then it doesn't matter how good we are, we're never going to catch up to them because 7 people versus somebody that has 1,000 people, you just can't compete. So I think knowing when to do it, but if you do it too early, then you're giving away too much. And that's a real question, I think, when people go looking at going to go get investors. You don't want to go too early because then you're giving away everything you have because you don't have much to offer. But then if you bring a lot to the table, then you don't have to give as much as you want. You have a little bit more leverage to say, well, I like what you have to offer, but I'm going to hold out for somebody else who's going to give me what I want. So I think I think that was one of my biggest challenges is you knowing when to let go and go get the investors and how far you hold back to bootstrap it.
That's an interesting question. I like it when our guests make it even harder for the next guest. It's a great question, and it's going to be fun for me and for all the people who have joined in to sort of try and understand and get perspective on that as well. And so that brings us to the end of this conversation. For all the people who joined us on YouTube or Amazon Music or Spotify, thank you for joining in. Do consider subscribing. Do ask your questions in the comments. And if you want to check out SpiderNow, we'll be linking that in the description over here as well. Do check out the platform. It will help you optimize and identify issues that you have with performance on your website as well. Thanks again, Bryan, for doing this. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you all for joining in. Until next time.
It's great speaking to you too.